enjoyed all of my jobs at Rolls Royce, but the one I really enjoyed was running a manufacturing business. When I was managing director of the fan systems operating business, we had responsibility for the whole of the front of the aero engine. So the fan system, which is the bit you see when you get onto a plane and you see the enormous fan blades, but all of the turbo machinery that behind that. And we had the responsibility from design, procurement for the bits we didn't make in-house, through to delivery of the fan system module. And there was something enormously exciting about seeing the whole process of a very high technology product, seeing the whole process from the very early stages of design through all of the testing, through to getting the manufacturing processes right. We had some very complex manufacturing processes because we made the superplastically formed and diffusion bonded fan blades, which was one of Rolls Royce's really core technologies where they are absolutely world leaders. We made, while I was there, the first of the swept fan blades, which are very complex and interesting aerodynamic geometry, which were really challenging to put through the superplastic forming process. And we were making we were designing and making the lift fan for the Joint Strike Fighter program, which again is an amazingly beautiful and complex bit of design and turbo machinery. But there is something very exciting about a factory that's running well, and I had a couple of factories in Barnoldswick, one up in Newcastle, some bits of manufacturing in two major factories on the Anstey site just near Coventry, and some manufacturing in the US. And there's nothing, I think, more exciting than a factory that's running well, where the product is moving through the factory as it should. You're not getting build-up of stockpiles of stock at different places in the process, where the scrap rates are low, and where people feel really positive about what they're making. And of course, Rolls-Royce makes very exciting products. You know, they are very high technology. They're absolutely world leaders. It has a workforce that's capable of being enormously proud of what it does. And when you manage to get all that together, so that you are getting the product out at the right quality levels, at the right cost levels, it's a very exciting place to be. And our year end was the 31st of December. So the factories were usually running between Christmas and New Year, and people were usually earning quite a lot of overtime by working between Christmas and New Year, walking around the factory floors between Christmas and New Year, you know, kind of talking to people, and there was just that feeling of excitement that we were going to make our year-end numbers, that we were making incredibly good products, and that this was a good place to work. And that I found hugely motivating. I also found it the most difficult job I have ever done, because we had periods of industrial unrest, we had periods where we weren't managing to deliver to the right cost, we had sessions where we were trying to get all of our employees to understand the financial pressure the company and our manufacturing unit were under, which meant, you know, briefing hundreds of people across 3 shifts, because we ran 3 shifts in the factory, so, you know, doing almost 24 hours on the trot, getting briefings through night shifts and things. And, you know, sometimes you really, it was a really stressful job, but actually at the end of the day, it was the one I found hugely, hugely motivating. I'm not sure I could have done it for 10 years, I think it would have knocked all the stuffing out of me, but it was just a fantastic thing to have done, and a great experience to have had.
As Chief Executive of the Institute of Physics, how did you work with policymakers and the public to aid them in developing their awareness and understanding of physics?
We tried to do it by being helpful, not just standing on the sidelines and complaining. We tried to be very, very constructive. So we wrote, you might say, policy papers, but we produced regularly quite a lot of technical reports which were aimed at informing policy, but actually aimed at making sure that there was good science going into informing policy. So we did quite a bit on some aspects of energy and climate change and nuclear power, for example. We worked very closely with schools, in particular with school teachers. We had a very strong schools network. We produced materials for teachers to help them with teaching. We actually also produced an A-level syllabus, which was one of the big investments that we made, which was meant to engage students better by relating physics to its applications, because physics can be quite abstract. And many physicists, many people who end up as research physicists, actually that's almost part of what they enjoy. But for many youngsters at school, that will be something they find quite hard to get to grips with. So to balance that with, here's how physics is applied in, for example, the Rolls Royce aero engine, and why the physics is so important, and why, it's understanding the physics that actually enables us to fly. So we were trying to kind of give both, rather than having, those sort of courses that some of us did as sixth formers, which were really about lots and lots of equations and quite abstract concepts. We ran, the final year I was at IOP was the centenary of Einstein's birth and death, I think it must have been. And so we ran a very big program across the UK called Einstein Year, where we tried to get we trained up all sorts of physics undergraduates across the country as physics street performers. We had a big thing at the Science Museum. We had lots of materials that went out to schools. We made sure there was lots of physics at all of the various science festivals around the country. We did quite a lot of lobbying of government on things like funding for research, to try and point out the real benefits the UK had got from research funding, and particularly research funding aimed at physics. So we tried always to be constructive. We were always offering something. We were offering solutions rather than just sort of sniping at what we saw were the wrong decisions. So I think that's a good way to influence people, is to actually offer them solutions and evidence.